Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez, here in the Broncos podcast studio, sitting across from our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. We're going into week 11, but we need to look back a little bit at Thursday Night Football, where the Broncos improved to 8-2 after a hard-fought 10-7 win over the Las Vegas Raiders, getting their first divisional win in the AFC West. So very excited for that. We're going to talk a little about some final thoughts, some news that came out over the course of the weekend and today, and much more in Altitude Advantage. But first, welcome back to the Broncos studio. How are you feeling today? Got a little mini bye week behind us, a little reset.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk football. It's Chiefs week officially. It's good stuff, and I'm excited to dive into all of it.
But before we do that, the Denver Broncos and Alex Singleton announced that on Friday, Alex Singleton underwent successful surgery for testicular cancer, which was diagnosed last week after a random NFL drug testing. It flagged indicators that prompted further evaluation. Alex is now recovering well from the procedure, with doctors optimistic he could return to play in the coming weeks pending additional test results. Obviously, we are wishing Alex the best in his recovery. Very happy that this was caught early for him, and he spoke to the media on Monday. And truthfully, his optimism, his positivity, the way that he is handling this entire process has been very inspiring, honestly. The fact that he found this news out on Monday, still played on Thursday. I believe he led the teams or was tied for most tackles in that game on Thursday, and then underwent surgery on Friday is pretty remarkable. It says a lot about him as a person, as a competitor, as a player, and so much more. But we do wish him the best in his recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it all right there. Brave, courageous, whatever adjective you want to put on it. I think for a couple of different reasons. One, to play in that football game, and really to play in a couple of football games. That initial random drug test was the Wednesday before the Houston game, and so he didn't know what was going on and why there were elevated levels of hormones in his system, and played in that game with kind of not knowing. Found out the next Monday, immediately decided, hey, I'm playing in this football game on Thursday, and said that football is an escape. He didn't want his life to change yet. And so for him to go and play in that game and be part of a defense that allowed just 7 points, I think, one, it shows you, and we've seen this around the NFL in different ways, right? But you never really know what's going on with somebody, right? And especially I know that Alex, among some fans, catches some heat on Twitter. Probably a good reminder of, hey, how do we treat people online? And we don't know what people are dealing with, and all that, and maybe show people a little grace, I think would be a good lesson for everybody, especially after that game. And so that stands out to me. And then I think the other part of it is the, just the ability to go play and be there for your teammates, not knowing what's going on. That's remarkable. He's got such toughness. He played through an ACL tear last year against the Buccaneers. It happened early in the game, and he just played the rest of the game. And nobody knew until the next day, and now he plays through this. And not even his teammates really knew about this on Thursday. Most of the teammates found out on this Monday as we're recording. And so, yeah, Alex Singleton, we know, former Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. We know what type of guy he is, what he does for Special Olympics in the community, and now what I'm sure he'll do for testicular cancer and awareness and preventative screenings. I think it sounded like, listening to him talk, he knows that he's lucky that they caught this early, and still not, they're still waiting for test results, and it was a successful surgery, but they're waiting for the pathology. So all our best to Alex as he continues to go through that. But yeah, to play against Houston, to play against Las Vegas, and really he said he felt like he's letting the team down, which obviously he's not. But you hope that he's able to get back on the field, not because of how it helps the Broncos. And I know, despite the Twitter criticism, this is a better team with Alex Singleton out there, and his intensity and his passion and his leadership. I think you saw that last year when he was injured, how the defense missed him. And I suspect it'll be the same way. They'll need to find a way to fill in for Alex. But I hope he's able to get back, not for the team, but because he loves it and because he wants to be out there. And, yeah, I was just really impressed the way he handled things on Monday, answering really personal questions and talking about something that I'm sure, as he said, the word cancer is scary. And I think everybody knows somebody who has has been or is currently impacted by cancer, either battling or someone who's been taken from us, and if not, unfortunately, it's something that will touch each of us at some point. And so, for Alex to talk that openly, man, just credit to him, hat tip to him, and shows the, I was thinking after all the Twitter discourse this weekend about 8-2 and who's playing well, and it's like all that stuff kind of pales in comparison to what Alex Singleton is going through and kind of what he's battled the last few weeks. And he mentioned the support his teammates gave him on Monday, and Greg Penner, Kerry Walton Penner, Sean Payton, George Payton, Bo Lowry, several different doctors, Richard Totto. He mentioned a bunch of people that have been there for him, and really they jumped on this, and when he needed help, they got it to him. And so kudos to everybody around. But I think it's a good reminder that if you need to, or even if you're not sure if you need to get that screening and that preventative care, but also I think a reminder of what's reset and what's important and how we treat people and all that. So, sending our absolute best to Alex. And I know he'd want us to talk about football because he loves football. He loves being out there. And he did say that he wasn't sure how the media watches football all day on Sunday. 'Cause he had to do that. It's a difficult job, but we get through it somehow.
Make it look easy doesn't mean it is, Yeah, no, his positivity is definitely one of the things I admire about him, not only through this, but really just through any of his injuries. I think the biggest thing that stood out from his call was just at the end. You can tell, as he was finishing the call, he was just like, hey, man, like I want this to be a lesson. I want to be an advocate and go get tested. I was scared of the doctor too. He's like, go do it. And so for him to have that vulnerability to all of his fans out there, to people that just admire his work ethic, I think is going to do a lot of good. And for him to be thinking of others at a time where this is really something he's going through personally says a lot about his character. So again, from everyone here in the Broncos studio, I'm sure across the organization and Broncos country, we do wish Alex Singleton the absolute best in his recovery, and we look forward to seeing him soon back on the field. Now, you mentioned there's one thing that Alex loves is being on the field. And he mentioned like football is kind of like that escape for him. And I know it's something that he's very proud of. And I remember after the game on Thursday, he talked about just like this team and how the mini bye week was much needed. And you look at the grand scheme of things of how this team has been battling back in different games and now stand at 8-2. You go into week 11 looking at another AFC West rival coming in with the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe they're coming off a bye week themselves. So it's kind of nice that the Broncos had a little reset. But just going back to that week 10 win against the Raiders, what are your final thoughts on that one as we kind of close the chapter? I feel like it's been so long. It was last Thursday.
It has been, yeah. No, I think that there's kind of two things that stand out to me as I look back. One is like game specific, and I think that obviously the defensive performance continues to stand out. The Denver defense is now up to third in the NFL in scoring. They're still first and third down in red zone. They're first in yards per play, rushing yards per play, second in pass yards per play. The only reason they're not, and then they're top 5, I believe, in total yards and rushing yards over the course of a game. So that defensive performance stands out. And then obviously I think offensively, you want to see improvement, and the guys talked about that. And Sean Payton mentioned on Monday that, for Bo in terms of throwing quick, it's a balance between throwing it too quick and staying in the pocket and making those down the field throws. He did mention that it's a lot easier to coach out getting rid of the ball too fast as opposed to the opposing problem, which is holding onto the ball too long and taking sacks. So, listen, I think that we've seen, and there's been a lot of discourse, that we've seen Bo play well and play at a high level. He is still a second-year quarterback. There's going to be ups and downs. I think on a short week, it was probably difficult to, maybe be as ready as you want to be. And the Broncos talked on Thursday night about some of the unscouted looks they saw. Sean Payton said that he himself could be better in certain areas. Bo talked about being better. So I'm not at the point where, everybody, it seems like, is pulling this panic ripcord. I'm not there. And I talked to John Elway on Saturday night, and he was like, it's funny to see how much criticism an 8-2 team is receiving. So, I think that there are certainly plays you want back, but Sean mentioned on Monday that everybody's got to play a little bit better around him and coach better around Bo Nix. And so let's just the narratives in this league change fast, right? A couple weeks ago, the Broncos put up 44 against the Cowboys. See what they do against the Chiefs this week. But these narratives swing back and forth really quickly. Broncos obviously need to be better, but on a short week, it'd been 6 games or 7 games in 39 days. Yeah. I think 7 games, and to just see, you could tell guys were tired after that game.
It was a tough stretch.
Yeah, and so for the Broncos to go 7-0 in that stretch was impressive, and I looked it up. It was the first time since 1999 that this team had not had a mini bye or a bye and played 10 games. So just the rarity of that schedule speaks to kind of what the Broncos were going through. And then I think the other thing that stands out is I believe Sean Payton, since getting here, has only lost 1 game after either a bye or a mini bye. So when he's got that extra time, I just talked about the challenge of Thursday night game. When you get that extra time, and I know the Chiefs are just as good after a bye week, but I'm excited to see kind of what they have ready to go after this mini bye, because the other point that stands out unrelated to the game is that you look around the league, Elisa, and it's like 7 consecutive wins starts to feel pretty good, and 8-2 starts to feel pretty good when you see some of the other things that happened.
Yeah, the Patriots are also 8-2. They're on a 7-game winning streak. The Colts pulled out a tough game. They're also 8-2, coming back from their loss, and then the Broncos sit tied with all 3 of those teams at 8-2. And when I talked to Talanoa Hufanga after that Raiders game, I asked him a few things. I said, first of all, how much fun do you have out there, given this is your first rivalry game, your team captain? Like, how much fun do you have out there? And he was like, man, like, these rivalry games, like, there's something different about them. Like, there's a different level of intensity and things like that. And when you talked about the defense in particular, he mentioned, like, he's like, those guys up front are relentless. And that's really what's been impressive to be a part of this defense. Just to flash back really quick, on Thursday night, they had 6 sacks, 11 QB hits, 22 QB pressures, and 1 pick. Overall, the defense has 46 total sacks, which is most by a team through 10 games since 1990. I mean, what they're able to do on that side of the ball has been very impressive. And I think you look at how you're trying to keep pace. Like, for me, like, I don't know, like, people get too caught up on how a win looks. And it's like, this is the NFL. Like, they just want to win. And it's going to come in different ways. And yes, you can talk about certain things, but at the end of the day, you're stacking wins in the right column, and you're keeping pace with 2 really good teams. And as you mentioned, the narratives change all the time, because you take down the Cowboys, then it was like, oh my gosh, this offense, et cetera, et cetera. And then you go play a really tough defense. And you mentioned that on the podcast, where you're like, and you play a tough defense, it's not going to be a high scoring game. And you look back at what the Texans did this past week, and although it was a high-scoring game for the Jaguars, how did they win? They win because they picked it off in the last 2 seconds of that game, running back for a touchdown to steal the win. So you have to think about kind of all the pieces and kind of put things in perspective of, like, an 8-2 team is an 8-2 team, period.
Yeah, I think that it's clear, and it's not like college where you just roll over any team if you're an Alabama or you're in Ohio State,
right?
You know, like, or right now, I guess if you're Indiana, it's not like that in the NFL. And just look at last week's scores. I mean, it took the Bears coming back from 10 points down to beat a Giants team that's 2-8. The Panthers, who just had a great win in Green Bay, lost at home to the previously 1-8 Saints, and they got shut out over the final 3 quarters. The Colts had to have a miraculous comeback to beat the 3-5 at that time Falcons.
Yeah, like an all-time performance by Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah,
he had like 3 touchdowns, over 200 yards rushing.
80-yard touchdown. The Texans had to score 26 unanswered to beat the Jaguars. There were a couple other ones in there too. The Steelers, who last week had a dominant performance over the Colts, got run away from in LA by the Chargers. And I'm not going to call out a bunch of quarterbacks individually because that feels not necessary, but like Aaron Rodgers, for example, who we know is an unquestioned Hall of Famer, he was 16 of 31 for 161 yards, 3 sacks, a touchdown, 2 picks, and a 50.6 quarterback rating, and that touchdown came very late in the game. So you're talking about a Hall of Famer that posted a passer rating that was lower than Bo's. And so I just think that, like, it's a week-to-week league. You're not going to be – oh, and I forgot, the Bills lost by 17 to the Dolphins, who had won 2 games before that. And the Bills are a team that last week beat the Chiefs and have Super Bowl aspirations. And so it is a week-to-week league in the sense of, I think it's hard, even for the best teams, to be at your best every single week and to bring your A game every single week. There's going to be weeks where you have your A game, but can you win when you have your B+ game? Can you win when you have your B- game? Can you win where one side of the ball, maybe they have a C+ game? And the Broncos over the last 7 weeks have shown that, hey, a game where maybe the defense, didn't play quite its best, though this has been a really good stretch for the defense, or the offense didn't play quite its best, the special teams didn't play quite their best. Can you find a way to still win? And I don't think people truly realize how difficult it is. They look and they say, oh, a 2-point win over the Jets, or 3-point win over the Raiders, or a 1-point win or whatever it was against the Texans. It's hard to get those wins, even if they're close. And so there's that famous saying, they don't say how, they say how many. And the Broncos have been able to avoid a game like this, a game like the Panthers had yesterday against the Saints, a game like the Bills had yesterday against the Dolphins. And maybe at some point the Broncos suffer a tough loss and end this winning streak. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully the Broncos keep rolling. But if they do, stacking these wins has given them a cushion. And so, I think when you look around the league, and part of it was, hey, the Broncos played in primetime. They're the only game on, and so everyone's going to be talking about that game, right?
Especially on Thursdays. You have like 3 whole days, realistically.
But then, when you have all these other games and you see, okay, the Jaguars were 5-3, and they I think just had a big win. Who did they beat? Oh, yeah, last week they had that dramatic win over the Raiders, and they've beaten the Chiefs. They've beaten the Niners. And it's like, okay, but consistency-wise, they've struggled a little bit. And the Broncos, despite their flaws that they're still working on, they've found a way to get wins. And that's what matters. I think that's a tough team, a well-coached team, a team that, listen, if you're 8-2, so all these people that are complaining, if you're 8-2 and there's concerns about the offense can flip that switch. Now you're talking about a team that has a chance to do something really, really special.
Yeah.
And so to me, I look at it as, hey, you're winning anyway. It's not, some of these teams are saying, hey, if we flip this switch, we can start winning. The Broncos are already winning and have room for improvement. I don't know. That I just think that this was a Sunday that I'm not super petty, so I didn't tweet anything, but I watched the Sunday slate and all I was thinking was hope a lot of people are kind of maybe it's not so easy to win 7 games in a row. So I just, this was a Sunday that was a good reminder of kind of what the Broncos have done. And now as we look ahead, you're going to find out, right? And not a lot of people, it's kind of wild, despite the fact that you're 8-2 leading the division at home, the Broncos are going to be underdogs this weekend. Yeah. There's not going to be a lot of people that give them a chance to win. And I think that's a perfect place for the Broncos to be because, hey, you don't believe in us? We'll go out and show you kind of what we can do. And Sean Payton talks all the time about you're going to be in bigger games. You're going to play in bigger games. This is one of those bigger games when the Chiefs come to town this weekend.
And when the Chiefs had their winning streak last season, they were all by 1-possession games. And the narrative was not that. And so it's very interesting to see how that changes. But, as you mentioned, I just go back to that Cowboys game, right? And it's the number 1 total offense. How is this defense gonna do? How is the Broncos offense gonna keep up? And it's they did just fine. RJ Harvey had a great game. The defense was able to kind of show their moments. And so at the end of the day, when you look at how this team is battling in the AFC West, we said this during our previews going into this season. This division will not be easy. We see how the Chargers are playing, how they're coming back and winning. The Chiefs are starting to get their footing a bit. They're still the Chiefs. The Broncos still have to go through them to really win the division, I think, in a lot of people's eyes. And this is your first big test against them. You're going to see them again on Christmas on the road. And so you have a chance here to know that you're playing really well at home. You have the crowd behind you. You have, this team kind of rolling and finding different ways to win. And one thing that the guys have all said is just they knew it, but it's now it's just more confirmation of we're never out. We're never out. And it doesn't matter what it looks like going into the fourth quarter. We're never out. But we also understand we also have lost tough ones in the fourth quarter, so we know it's also not over. It doesn't matter how far ahead we are. And I think understanding both sides of that coin has really helped this team. And obviously, we're going to break down the Chiefs-Broncos matchup more in detail on Thursday's podcast. But I'm excited for this matchup. I think just rivalry games in general are fun, and this is a big one going into the bye week. And as if we talked to all the guys, going into the bye with a win is a much better feeling. So I know that they have that in the back of their minds too.
Yeah, it's a huge game from a playoff seeding perspective. I think Broncos' chances of winning the division go up to 68, 70%, somewhere in there, if they're able to win this football game. Not out of it if you lose, obviously. You still could even maintain the division lead depending on what else happens next weekend. But I think that it's going to be a tough one, right? And who knows how it plays out. But I am pretty confident they're going to be in it, and it's going to be a close game, and it's going to be a hard-fought game. And that's, to me, is in part why the Raiders game was like that. Division teams know each other well. They're always a little bit weird, kind of. And you toss in the Thursday night thing too, obviously. But Saints-Panthers, division game. Bills-Dolphins, a division game. Jaguars-Texans, a division game. Those were three of the weirder games of the week, right? And they were all division games. And so, and I think one other thing that we forgot to mention, or that I was thinking about, is you also played a really physical Houston defense if you're Denver's offense, and then played 4 days later. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. But I think that you're rested up, should be ready to go. Sean Payton said it Monday, we'll be ready. You're going to have to. Vance Joseph's defense was good last year in Kansas City against Mahomes, held him to, 16 points. And then the previous game in Denver, the Broncos, I think, forced 5 turnovers in 2023. Even the Thursday night game in Kansas City, the first game between Sean Payton and this Chiefs team, the Broncos defense still played pretty well. The offense was looking for a spark. But that kind of, I would expect a close game, a game that the Broncos defense is able to play well. Obviously, we'll see what happens with Pat Surtain. Going to be without Alex Singleton. We haven't seen the injury report this week, so who knows who else pops up. But, hopefully you get Marvin Mims back. So we'll talk about all that more Thursday. But maybe I'll be wrong, and I'll eat my words if I am wrong. But anybody that thinks the Chiefs are going to come in here and just blow out the Broncos, I don't see that happening. Just with how tough this team is, they've got some rest. They're going to be fired up for this game. And like I said, there's a lot of disrespect for an 8-win team, an 8-2 team. So I can't wait for this one. It is, in a lot of ways, the biggest game since Super Bowl 50, certainly regular season, just in terms of, hey, this is the real chance to take the division back for the first time in basically a decade. And I can't wait for it. I can't wait to break it down all week, get back into, it's only been, 4 days since the last game, but it feels like a long time. I'm excited to get back in the rhythm and get ready for this game.
The Broncos are 5-0 at home. The Chiefs are 1-3 when they're playing away. And as you mentioned, this is a big game. And a statement was made when the Broncos knocked off the Super Bowl, defending champions and the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. And this is another chance to do it because obviously we all know what the Chiefs are capable of and how high of a level they're able to play. So I know within the AFC West, this is the matchup that I know all of Broncos country has been waiting to see. But again, we're going to break all of that down on Thursday's episode of Altitude Advantage. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But until then, I am your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez, in the Broncos podcast studio, sitting across from our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. For everything catching up from Week 10 and going into Week 11, make sure you guys visit DenverBroncos.com.